Welcome to the Trainer Talk, where we discuss topics related to health and fitness to help you gain back control of your health and fitness and become the absolute best version of yourself physically and mentally. Enjoy.
In today's episode of the Trainer Talk, we will be talking about behavioral change and the three different causes of behavioral change. What are the most powerful ways and how you can apply them to your life to make those changes you've always wanted to make. Enjoy. So there are really three different ways of making behavioral change, and not all of them are necessarily equal. Some are better than others, and we obviously want to find the one that helps us make a lasting change. So first is has to do with relationships. So making a change, you're motivated to make a change by pleasing somebody else, getting a desired reaction from somebody else. So it'd be like me starting to work out so you would like me, basically, or like maybe we'd be friends if I started working out.
Gotcha.
Second, identification. This one, I would say the relationship one is probably the least long-lasting one. Identification isn't bad. It has some upsides, but it's not the most powerful way of behavioral change. But basically, it's adopting habits of somebody that you look up to, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you guys could probably go into that a little bit more. And then the third one is the most powerful, which comes from inside. It's the intrinsic motivation behind the behavior change, and that's having those reasons. That why is what we always talk about inside you, and really looking for those benefits for your own personal reasons rather than please somebody else or to be like somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the first two are very external and the last one's internal. And I think people can start off in the first two, but if they're going to make it a lasting change, it needs to develop into that third type of behavior change where they do have those internal reasons why. And like you end up having to find out your own personal motivations and yourself and what you really want, not what you think other people's want you to do or what you want to do to fit in or make other people happy or to be like someone else, because we're all very different. And even if we all do the same thing or copy the same thing, like with the having the idol or the model, you're just still not going to get the same results as that person. So like you said, it's a good way to get started and to like have something to strive for, but then you have to like almost make your future self your role model and like think, okay, like what's the best version of myself, and that would get all these successful things, that would get all the things that you want or achieve all the things that you want to do. And you have to think, okay, what does that person look like? What do they do? What are their character traits? And then, okay, what do you have to do to get to that spot? And then that's where that third level comes in, where what you do is not based on outside sources, and your actions and behaviors aren't influenced by that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people go wrong when in that number two, the identification, it's like, oh, I want to be like that person, so I'm going to just copy everything that they're doing and I'll end up like them. Mm-hmm. Where it's not what they do, it's like their traits and their habits. It's like adopt those traits of like, okay, you don't have to eat exactly how they're eating and train exactly how they're training and do everything that they do to a T. It's just like, okay, that person eats healthy, trains hard, focuses on sleep, recovery, whatever. So maybe I should start adopting some of those similar traits and understanding that everybody's different. Like me and DeLorean could have the exact same training program, nutrition plan, sleep regimen, and everything, but we're not going to look exactly the same. Like he's going to develop in other areas, I'm going to develop in different areas. So everybody's going to be different. And I feel like a lot of people have that kind of false like belief that they're going to end up looking or being just like somebody that they look up to. and they're just going to kind of set themselves up for failure. The results aren't going to last because they're going to reach a point where, oh, I'm not achieving X goal, so I must just not. It just must not be working for me or whatever. I can't do this or something. Whereas, if you just focus on, okay, what traits do I need to adopt from that person I look up to, then you're going to be able to eventually internalize and figure out what your reasons are. Why do you want to adopt those traits? And then that will get you to where you want to be. And then I think it would last a lot longer.
Yeah, that's something I've had to work on personally, is trying to find my internal motivation. And that's gone all the way back to like playing football in high school. Like I would sit in the locker room before games watching some highlight videos of like my favorite players, or like I would try to model my game after these guys. But at the end of the day, it's going to be absolutely nothing like that, and I just have to focus on myself and try to be the best version of myself that I can be. And instead of, finding that motivation by scrolling through Instagram and seeing these motivational videos in the gym between my sets, like you almost have to practice finding your internal motivation, like by getting rid of those other types of motivation, basically. So you're left with nothing besides yourself. And I think that's the best way to find it and practice using it in everyday life, which can be hard to do. But
yeah, I think it's really hard.
Yeah.
And that's where like the motivational stuff's definitely helpful. Like there's nothing wrong with, like we during the open, like we'll put on the games on the TV, we get all fired up, amped up. So you use it as like that little extra driver. But like you said, like you can't expect to be exactly like an NFL running back as a high school running back. Like there's so much more development and things that you would have to do to get there, but you can use him to motivate you to do the work that is required to become that type of person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and like seeing what people are capable of with like the role model aspect of it is huge too. Just like, if I put in or figure out what works for yourself and like not doing exactly what your favorite player, your favorite CrossFit athlete does, because everyone genetically, mentally, physically are just different.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to find, okay, what's it going to take for you personally to get there? Because if your motivation is to be like someone else, you're always going to fall short. Yep. And then you're just going to get discouraged. And then that's where it doesn't last long term. It's not the most long term. It would last longer than just like trying to please other people, but it would eventually fade because you're like, I'm never going to be like this person. Or you get caught playing the comparison game of like, oh, well, I don't look like them yet. And so you get discouraged because, even if you've been working out at it hard for 2 years, like they've been doing it for 10 or 20 years. So they're obviously going to be much further along in their journey and their process. And so like coming back full circle of like being present and aware with yourself while you're working out or just in general everyday life, and then thinking, okay, like how do I make myself better? Like how do I become that best version of myself? And you have to like bring that awareness to what you're currently doing, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and just kind of like adapting from there and like not being afraid to like try different things. And that's where the like environment, sometimes even just trying to like please other people, because that's kind of what humans naturally do. Like we want to be in a group and accepted by the group. And it's like, okay, for here, it's like a lot of it's CrossFit. So like DeLorean came in and he was doing lots of like bodybuilding and some running. And then, he started doing a couple of CrossFit workouts, and it's not, I don't know, I think it was necessarily to like be accepted by us, but just to like be around it. And you're trying to, maybe it was a little bit of trying to just like be open-minded to what we're doing and then trying it. But if it really wasn't for you, then you could say, okay, that's not what my long-term goal is. I'm going to go back to what I was doing or something like that. And this kind of like using those circles, you can use the different types of motivation in positive ways, but I think you do make a good point with the being long-term. The third, and is focusing internally on your own core drivers, is the hugest one.
Yeah. I want to go back to like a quote or a video, David Goggins video popped in my head when we were talking about this earlier, but talking about how sometimes we struggle with being on our own, being without the external motivation. And he was talking about, he was like running outside or something. You know how he's always running outside in his videos.
Mm-hmm.
He says he never listens to music when he runs. And he says he does that because, like, if you're always listening to music or listening to books or podcasts, and you're never alone with your thoughts out on these hard runs, when you start to get in that, like, where you're hurting and you don't have that, like, what are you going to do? You're just alone with your thoughts and just like struggling at the end of a race or something like that. And it gets hard. And so he practices that. So he never listens to music when he works out, which I think is a good way to practice finding your internal motivation,
Yeah.
which I kind of do a little bit sometimes.
I can second that, because like one of my favorite things to do is work out with all of you guys, and like it's super fun, it's motivating. But then every once in a while, there are days where like if I'm in here by myself, you know, I don't necessarily have to have music blaring to get me pumped up. But I can sometimes I really like just thinking about my goals and motivating myself kind of internally, especially like those are the days where it's like I really like to move heavy weight. I just put myself into like a different mindset. It's interesting. Like the other day when you came in, when I did that thruster, like I was just in here kind of by myself. I did have music playing, but I was in my head, like telling myself what I was capable of, and like, you freaking got this. Like internal self-talk, I think is so powerful, and if people can get better at it. But going back to like you, when you started CrossFit, I think it's not, you didn't do it because we were doing it and so you wanted to fit in. I think it's because you know what your why is, and like why you wanted to kind of explore other options. Do you know what your why, like, would you mind sharing kind of like, why do you want to be fit and healthy, or like what's your why?
My why is probably, it's kind of hard to narrow it down into like one.
Well, a lot of people have like three or four or five.
I mean, mostly just to be like the fittest I can be. I want to be able to, fit in with any crowd. Like I want to be able to be with the bodybuilders, the endurance athletes, and I just want to be overall healthy. Like I want the benefits from like the energy, the mood, the mental clarity. I mean, all of that. And so when I started doing the CrossFit, I saw like working out with you guys and just working here as a tool to learn as much as I can from you guys. So I'm like, why not? I love competing, and that when you signed me up for the Battle of the Boxes spontaneously, he's like, oh yeah, I signed you up for a competition. I was like, oh god, here we go. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but that's kind of become one of my whys as well, as competing. Like I've missed that so much, and now like if I ever need motivation, I think ahead to that competition, and when I'm like staring across the room at my competition, like, oh, it's about to go down, and like that's what I live for. So I just get like super excited about that, and sometimes that's what gets me through workouts.
What I like about, so like CrossFit's the tool to kind of get you to where you want to be based off your whys and your goals. Like if you're a competitive person, CrossFit is like the sport of fitness. So there's a competitive side to it. So it provides that, sense of accomplishment to those people that want to compete and things like that. But it also, it brings every type of fitness into one. So like if you want to be the fittest person you can be, both in strength and endurance and all that kind of stuff, like that's why it's such a great tool for that reason. So I think just thinking about aligning, okay, what am I doing? What's the best way or best things that I can do that align with the reasons why I want to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's probably why for me, the reason I started doing it is because I was training clients that wanted to lose weight, and I was putting them through conditioning, cardio, stuff like that, things that I never did. And so I'm like, why should I make these people do things that I'm not willing to do? And so I wanted to develop myself as a person and get outside of my comfort zone and do some things that I was having my clients do, because my why is I want to lead by example. And I want to prove to other people what is possible. Those are some of my whys. So in order to do that, I obviously have to broaden my range of just bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So that's why I got into more of the CrossFit. I never did cardio. My cardio was supersets. So really stepped out of my comfort zone and started doing that. And I used the CrossFit Games documentaries as my initial motivation, but then my internal goals and my whys changed. So throughout your journey, they will change. You're gonna, your reasons and things like that will change. Your goals will change, and now it's just to prove to people what's possible. Like, I'm trying to become the best version of myself. I could strive and want to be a games athlete, but like what I just told you guys before we started recording was like, I'm not willing to make the sacrifices that a games athlete's willing to make. So although I admire those guys, I'm not going to be the identifier, like, oh, I want to do what they do because I want to be just like him. So I better copy everything they do. Because if I were to do that, I'd have to sacrifice coaching classes. I'd have to get, way more sleep. I wouldn't be able to go out and do anything for fun, really.
Mhm.
I mean, your life revolves around training, sleep, nutrition, and that's pretty much it. Repeat. It's rinse and repeat. And so I wasn't willing to make those sacrifices. So it's figuring out what you want to do, who you want to be, and then using those other tools and things as motivation, and then finding what's going to work best for you to get you where you want to be.
Yeah, there's a saying that like Jen Brosterman has, and it's aligning yourself with your true north. So of like, there's a compass dial, right? And it's like, okay, I want to go in this direction to get where I need to go. And like, okay, we need to align ourselves. And sometimes you kind of get off the path a little bit, and you just have to think, okay, like what's going to get myself back in line with my true north of like, for you, it's making a difference in your community is like a big thing.
Mhm.
And, if you started to do the training and like, okay, I want to be like Rich Froning and train for 8 hours a day and whatever, that wouldn't be aligned with your true north, with your true core values and what you want to do and have be your life purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So that's spending time by yourself with your thoughts, whether it's in a workout or driving in a car or just
showering.
Showering.
If anybody is ever I'm probably going to blow a bunch of minds, but like when you're in the shower is like one of the only times that you're like stimulated by a bunch of things. Yeah. And so that's when we have a lot of our creative thoughts and stuff, and a lot of our best ideas is when we're in that state. Or like if you're walking out in nature without any headphones or any noise or anything like that. But yeah, like taking a shower and walking outside, like that's where we have a lot of our great ideas and thoughts, and we can really align with ourselves and figure out what we really want and stuff like that. I just wanted to add that on because it made me think of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's part of it. And like for me, driving, I've made that drive so many times, and it's just straight. So I just like almost I can do it and like zone out. Like I don't have to like really think very hard while I'm driving, and so it allows me to kind of like I'll have those thoughts of like how to get better and like things that I can change or do better, and like little ideas of like, oh, okay, I should like cook one meal daily, like a new meal or something like that. And then that would spur my motivation to eat like healthier. Cause I mean, you can always eat a little bit healthier, right? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, I can incorporate more vegetables by doing this. Or, it's like I've incorporated more stretching and core because I feel like that's two areas where I'm lacking, and like had a little bit of like a back twingy thing on squats, like not pain, but I couldn't work out like I wanted to because of it. And so I was like being introspective about it and like, okay, well, what can I do about it, instead of just like saying, oh, well, this workout's a wash and all that. Just like, okay, I'm going to stretch, I'm going to do some core, like I'm going to start doing the things that are going to prevent this in the future or to get better, like finding those weaknesses. And like sometimes things like that happen where it's like, okay, I guess I've been neglecting this part of my life. And then focusing on, okay, how can I make those little improvements to become better?
Yeah, I think you probably had some intrinsic motivation for that, didn't you? Making yourself better through doing those different things.
Yeah.
And I think that like you become more independent as you find your internal motivation. Like you you aren't relying on other people. You aren't trying to please other people. And so as a side effect of that, you're just kind of becoming more, I'm trying to find the word besides independent, but like just not reliant.
On other people's like
Yeah,
opinions.
like you don't care what other people think. You know, it's something like it almost sounds like a little selfish that you're taking, like, doing these things for yourself, but at the same time, it's not. Like, you're just developing yourself and things like that.
Yeah, and how that goes of like, you know, taking that extra time to make yourself better, it's going to impact the people in your life. Because if you're a better version of yourself, then you can be better for them too.
Yeah. So one example I have of external motivation without internal is probably a couple summers ago. It's probably sophomore or junior in high school. I came in. It was my first ever experience with CrossFit. Martin was making me work out. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it all started with same thing as you. I watched the documentary, Rich Froning, Fittest Man on Earth or whatever it was. So I was like, okay, this dude's a beast. Like I want to do some of this stuff so I can look like that. And so right there, that's identification. So it's a good first step, but I didn't have that internal. So I came into the gym. I had Martin make me some workouts. I probably did it for maybe a week or two, and I was like, oh my God, it's so awful. And at the time, my whys are a little bit different. Like I was doing a lot of bodybuilding, and all I really cared about was looking good. Like my whys were not to be super healthy, to be super fit, to have better energy, things like that. It was just about how I looked.
So what we can do is break this down. So thinking back, why did you care about looking good?
Because I cared what other people thought, honestly. Like I wanted to look good for myself partially, but like I wanted to look good in pictures. Like I wanted to look good with my shirt off. And that's kind of changed from that to just something that a byproduct of what I'm really going for now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
which wasn't a good thing to start with.
So
having that is it.
How could somebody, because a lot of people start with that same exact reason, like they want to lose this weight to look like so-and-so or whatever. Like my friend lost all this weight, I want to do the same thing. You know, so how could we help people figure out what their internal driver is? We use a strategy called the 5 whys. So we could kind of go through an example if you guys want.
Sure.
Okay, so most people, like most of our goals, let's just use kind of the average person that we see.
Yeah.
You know, most people walk in and they want to lose 20 pounds. So Bethany, you know, why do you want to lose 20 pounds?
Well, you know, I want to fit into these clothes that I have in my closet, and I've got, you know, some trips coming up, and I just want to look better.
Okay, and why do you want to, you know, have those clothes fit better and look good on these trips?
Well, when I used to fit into those clothes, like I really like those clothes, and now that I can't wear them, it's, you know, it's kind of a reminder of, you know, where I was at before, and I can't really fit into those now, and it's frustrating. And then I want to look good on these like trips and stuff, and just to feel a little bit more confident and not as self-conscious about how I look.
So, why is feeling confident and not being self-conscious important to you?
It's important because I feel like I'm in my head more than I am actually enjoying whatever experience I'm having.
Okay. So would you say like those thoughts are constantly consuming, those not feeling confidence consuming your thoughts. And
Yeah.
so maybe your experiences in life aren't what you would hope they would be.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So why is it important to change those thoughts?
It's important to change those thoughts so I can actually enjoy my life more.
Yeah. So the goal is actually to enjoy life, not just lose 20 pounds.
Right.
You want to get to the point where you're confident and comfortable so that you actually can enjoy the experiences of life. That's way more powerful than just, I want to look good on a cruise.
Right.
It sounds a lot more internal.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we can go from an external goal or motivator to a very powerful internal goal or motivator.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody can do this. They literally just have to ask themselves why they want to achieve X, normally about 3, 4, or 5 times. In that circumstance, I actually kind of asked her like a little bit of a different framed question than why, but like, how is that going to impact you? Or like, how is it going to feel when X? And then it can open up some new avenues of really why you want to be fit, healthy, whatever it is. So I just wanted to do that exercise so that people can understand how they can figure that out, because I think that's the core root of everything that we choose to do on a daily basis is really finding out what our why is, what our purpose is, and then pointing kind of what you said, like aligning our life and our habits and our daily actions with our true north, where we want to go. It all comes back to why you want to do it.
Mm-hmm. That, and then also painting the opposite of like, okay, well, what if you're 20 pounds heavier than you are right now? Like, how is your life going to look like then? And you're even less energy and you feel less confident and there's more clothes. You have to go out and buy more clothes because now the clothes that you're wearing now don't fit.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going to feel?
Yep.
And how is that going to impact your life? And then you have something to run towards, but then also something that you want to avoid.
Yes.
And it's like, I feel like we kind of have a similar motivation of like, we have things that we run towards, but we don't want to be unhealthy, unfit. We don't want to be sick. We don't want to be limited by our bodies.
Yeah.
We want to have freedom with our bodies and be able to do all these really cool things and see what our bodies are capable of.
Yeah.
And rather than just like our bodies ending up being the thing that limits us.
Yeah. And the funny thing is everybody has this limit of where the pain of change is greater than the pain where they're at. So somebody might walk in and they might be 15 pounds overweight, and we might present them with an option to completely fix themselves. Like, all right, let's get you on the right path. Let's lose that 15 pounds. And they might say no because that pain isn't great enough yet. What happens when you're another 15 pounds heavier? Or maybe is it going to take 30 pounds? Is it going to be 45 pounds? At what point are you going to look in the mirror and be like, okay, I cannot go any longer. I need to make changes right now. And so for anybody listening, if you're in that circumstance right now, or maybe you are 10 or 15 pounds kind of outside of your comfort zone, take a look at what your life looks like. If you're moving in the direction where it's only going to get worse, you are going to reach a point to where this is enough. Maybe it's a heart attack. Maybe it's type 2 diabetes. Maybe it's you're looking in the mirror and you're 50 pounds heavier. You're going to make changes. Why not get ahead of it and just make those changes right now? Figure out where do you want to go in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Kind of zoom out. Picture yourself as a 70-year-old version of yourself. What do you want to look back and say, okay, I want to live this type of life. What do I need to do to live this type of life? And make the changes right now so that you can avoid getting to that pain to where you're going to do it anyways.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And then another tip for, I guess, like an example of what you can do for that internal is some people, it's better to get their thoughts out on paper rather than just like thinking in their head. So, grab a sheet of paper and just write out like, okay, what are the things that I want to accomplish or be or something like that. And then break it down from there. So like, okay, I want to be a person that works out every day or like looks good, feels good, like your body looks as good as it feels. they make certain number, like a salary or something, have different goals, healthy relationships. It's like, okay, break it down from there. What do you have to do to get to that point? What are the habits and the traits you need to develop and do on a daily, weekly basis to get there? And then, okay, to get there, I have to do all these different things and not put like a timeline on it. Just focus on getting better at those things that are going to move you in the right direction, and just knowing that one day, if you don't quit those habits, if you just keep going and keep trying to get a little bit better every day and you don't ever stop that, you're going to end up where you are and actually further beyond that.
Yep. Thanks again for tuning in to the Trainer Talk. If you are ready to gain back control of your health and fitness, we would love to sit down and chat with you to see if we can put together a plan for you. All you have to do is head to taylorhutchinsonfitness.net and book a free consult. Again, make sure you like and subscribe if you like the video, and hopefully we'll see you soon.